My father gave the family business to my sister, so she could sell it out from under me. He said it was fair, said it was simpler this way. I was the one who built it. I was standing in his living room when he said the words, barely 4 weeks before he died. I've changed the will, he told me. Lauren will handle the estate. You'll be taken care of. Lauren, my younger sister. She hadn't worked a single day in the mill. I glanced at her. She didn't even blink. Like she already knew what he was going to say. She wouldn't meet my eyes, not out of guilt, but because she thought she was right. That was the part that stung the most. Let me back up, briefly. I'm Ethan Langley. I'm 38 now. I spent my entire adult life running Langley Timber and Millworks, the company my grandfather started and my father rebuilt. For years, it was just the two of us, me and Dad, turning raw wood into architectural art. Custom staircases, reclaimed beam mantles, cabinetry for high-end lake homes. By the time I was 30, I was handling every client, every vendor, every contract. My father stopped coming into the shop full-time. He let me run things, and I was fine with that. Lauren? She lived in Brooklyn. Art school, unpaid internships, dating guys named Jasper and Theo, who called themselves curators. Dad paid her rent, paid off her credit cards more than once. But she was charming, polished, the kind of daughter he could show off at dinner parties. My daughter lives in the city, works with museums. He never said it, but I think some part of him was proud she'd escaped the small-town dust and sawdust life. I never wanted to escape. I wanted to build. When the cancer hit, everything changed fast. By then, Lauren was back in town to help. She started showing up to appointments, sitting in on estate planning meetings. I chalked it up to grief. I figured Dad was just leaning on her more because she had time. I was still running the business, keeping employees paid, clients happy, orders on time. So when he called me one Tuesday afternoon and said, "Come by the house. We need to talk about the will," I didn't think much of it. I should have. I walked into the living room expecting to discuss contingency planning, succession, something professional. Instead, Lauren was already there, sitting straight-backed on the couch like she was waiting for a board meeting to begin. Dad looked tired, frail, but his eyes were sharp. "I've decided Lauren will handle the estate," he said. "She'll sell the business. The money will be split between the two of you." Sell the business? I laughed before I could stop myself. "You're selling Langley Timber?" "I'm not," he said. "Lauren is." Lauren didn't even flinch. "You're giving it to her?" I asked. "So she can liquidate it. She's got a better sense of finance than you give her credit for," he replied. That was rich. I'd kept the place profitable for 10 straight years. Through a pandemic. Through inflation. Through 2 winters where we almost froze trying to get shipments out on time. "You said." "I know what I said," he interrupted. "I've changed my mind. It's final." I turned to Lauren. She said, with a perfectly even voice, "It's not personal, Ethan. This is just what makes sense now." It's not personal, but it felt like war. 3 weeks later, my father died. And true to her word, Lauren took control of the estate. Within 2 months, she sold Langley Timber and Millworks to a corporate acquisition firm based in Albany, a holding company, the kind that strips assets, cuts labor, and resells whatever's left. The saws were shut down, equipment auctioned. Longtime employees let go with severance pay that wouldn't cover their truck notes. She posted a photo on Facebook in front of a closing table with a caption that read, "New Beginnings, Honoring Dad's Legacy." They quoted her in the Albany Business Journal, called her a forward-thinking executor navigating a legacy business with grace. No mention of me. No mention of who actually ran the business. 2 weeks later, a check showed up in the mail. $48,000. No breakdown. No explanation. I called her. No answer. I emailed. She replied, eventually. The business had more liabilities than assets. "You're lucky there was anything left." Lucky. She said it wasn't personal. But when I stood outside the boarded-up warehouse where my name used to hang on the front sign, I couldn't help but feel like she'd buried me with him. I didn't contest the will. I didn't show up at probate court. I didn't scream or cry or go on Facebook rants about justice. I cashed the check. I sold my house. I packed a single suitcase. And I disappeared. Let her think I'd given up. Let her believe she'd won. She'd turned our father's death into a business deal. She thought the story was over. But she didn't understand one thing. That day, I didn't lose my inheritance. I started the clock. I deleted everything in under 4 hours. LinkedIn, email, phone records, client history, cloud access. I closed the bank account my father had helped me open after college, packed 2 bags, sold my truck for cash, and rented a one-way car south. I didn't leave a note, didn't say goodbye, didn't even leave voicemail for the few people who might have deserved one. Lauren had made sure I no longer existed inside the legacy I helped build, so I made it official. I erased myself. Not out of grief. Not because I was broken, but because I knew she'd be watching, waiting for a reaction, waiting for a challenge. And there's nothing more unnerving to someone who expects war than silence. It wasn't a disappearance. It was a pivot. The town I landed in was small, coastal, forgotten. One of those places with more closed antique stores than open ones, and residents who didn't ask questions as long as you paid in cash and kept your name to yourself. I rented a 2-room apartment above a rotting upholstery shop, did repair work under the table for a guy who flipped old churches into wedding venues, and spent most nights in a back room, sanding reclaimed pine to keep my hands busy. I told people my name was Evan. They didn't ask for ID. Nobody cared who I used to be. That's what made it perfect. Meanwhile, Lauren ascended like she was auditioning for a documentary about self-made women, which was funny, considering she hadn't made a single damn thing in her life that didn't come from someone else's labor. She launched Langley Heritage Design within 6 months of selling the business, complete with a website built off a Squarespace template and words that read like they were stolen from the Instagram account of someone who actually did the work. Sustainable craftsmanship with story. Revitalizing American legacy through modern aesthetic. I read every line and recognized pieces of my old copy, rearranged with buzzwords and stripped of soul. She didn't even bother hiding it. She started doing interviews. She gave quotes to design blogs. She landed a 4-page spread in a regional architecture magazine with a photo of her standing in front of one of my old projects, the carved oak stairwell I built for the Carter estate in 2017, with a caption that read, "Inspired by childhood memories of her family's mill." I watched the video tour she did of her new flagship showroom, which was really just a rebranded warehouse downtown with polished concrete floors and Edison bulbs. She walked the camera crew past live-edge tables and faux-worn barnwood planks, describing finishes she didn't understand and terminology she didn't earn. She said things like, "We grew up in sawdust. It's in our DNA." There was no we. There hadn't been in a long time. But it worked. The image, the brand, the story. That's all most people need. She got speaking gigs, partnerships, a 6-figure design contract for a boutique hotel in the Berkshires. She hosted heritage preservation workshops for interior designers who thought reclaimed meant trendy and rustic meant real. She even got invited to speak at a TEDx event in Hudson, 30 minutes from our hometown. I watched her talk in full. She wore a tailored blazer and fake humility and told the audience how loss can be an opening, not a closure. I paused the video, scrolled through the comments, and saw nothing but praise. She was rewriting the history of our family one click at a time. And no one questioned it because I wasn't there to tell the truth. I wasn't there by choice. Let her think I was gone. The part she never understood, and never will, is that while she was performing legacy, I was preserving it. Not for the public, not for praise, for myself. Quietly, ruthlessly, without shortcuts. I didn't need articles or applause. I needed patience. Because people like Lauren don't build things. They build illusions. And illusions only hold when no one's watching too closely. The cracks started earlier than she knew. The first came from a former supplier I tracked down using an alias. I posed as a researcher from a sustainability journal, told him I was writing a piece on family-run design firms. When I brought up Langley Heritage, he laughed before I even finished the name. Said he cut ties after a 6-month runaround on payment terms. Said their orders came late. Their specs were sloppy, and their team didn't know the difference between ash and poplar unless it was labeled. He told me she stiffed him on the last shipment, and when he tried to go public about it, someone from her PR team offered him a consulting retainer to keep things quiet. He took the check, then sent me a PDF of the contract. I read every word of it that night, over a beer in a diner booth that smelled like burnt toast and old vinyl. She was buying silence, which meant there were things worth silencing. I started keeping records, not just names, patterns, employee turnover, vendor reviews, the way her language changed over time. At first, her company leaned into legacy millwork, then pivoted to design consultancy. She dropped all mentions of manufacturing entirely after year 2 and rebranded again as a heritage restoration studio, even though her entire team had no background in preservation. I watched her team roster change every quarter. Her project manager vanished. So did her logistics director. The only constant was the marketing girl and Lauren's fiancé, some finance guy with a private equity background who'd never held a hammer in his life, but talked on panels about artisanal asset leverage. Then came the showroom. That was the moment everything clicked. She unveiled it with a press release and a ribbon-cutting event. Invited the mayor. Invited clients. Invited the local paper. And at the entrance, mounted on the limestone wall in gleaming brass, was a plaque that read, Langley Heritage HQ. Established 2020. In honor of Thomas Langley. I sat in the dark that night, staring at that photo on her website. She hadn't just rewritten the business. She'd rewritten the man. My father wasn't someone who believed in branding. He believed in showing up, getting your hands dirty, doing things right. He would have hated that plaque. But she used his name like it was a signature she never earned, and no one stopped her because everyone who remembered the truth had already been erased. Everyone but me. That night, I opened a new notebook and began outlining the structure, what I knew, what I didn't, who to contact, who to avoid. I listed every client who posted publicly about her company, then searched for records, reviews, digital trails. I wasn't looking for mistakes. I was looking for leverage, something she wouldn't see coming. I created new email accounts, registered as a potential contractor under a different name, requested design spec packets through her inquiry form. She sent them. Her team was desperate to grow. Sloppy. Fast. They didn't verify credentials. They didn't vet anything. They handed over proprietary proposal materials without blinking. I kept everything. Every file. Every timeline. Every photo that proved what I already suspected. She wasn't delivering what she promised. And then, buried inside one of those proposals, I saw it. An interior mock-up that used one of my original blueprints. Not a rework. Not inspired by. It was mine. Down to the signature flourish I used to add at the bottom corner. She'd stripped the signature and replaced it with her watermark. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I just stared at it until the room felt cold. This wasn't business. It wasn't rivalry. It was theft. And that's when the silence ended. She told the world I was gone. She was right. Ethan Langley was gone. But the man watching her now? He doesn't leave paper trails. He leaves consequences. I used to think revenge was about fire, about the storm, the rage, the righteous swing that settles the score. But it's not. Revenge is a shadow. It doesn't roar. It lingers, watching quietly, rearranging pieces while the other side thinks they're still playing a fair game. And when it finally steps into the light, it doesn't need to raise its voice. It's already won. I didn't start with sabotage. I started with visibility. Controlled, deliberate visibility. I made sure Lauren knew I was out there. Not often. Not everywhere. Just enough to let her feel eyes on her when she least expected it. The first time was at the Design Expo in Boston. I entered under a vendor's pass I paid a guy cash for outside the loading dock. Her face was everywhere. Banners, screens, printed in the event program like she was royalty. She took the stage mid-afternoon in a cream blazer with that clipped, practiced smile she used when she wanted to appear both humble and superior. Legacy, she told the crowd, isn't about what we inherit. It's about what we evolve. I slipped into the back row just as she reached the part about growing up in the mill, and when she scanned the crowd, her gaze caught mine. It was half a second, maybe less, but her voice caught, just slightly. Not enough for the crowd to notice. But I noticed, and so did she. She recovered, powered through the rest of her speech, hit all her rehearsed notes. But she skipped the Q&A and disappeared out the side curtain before the applause stopped echoing. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. That was the first turn of the screw. After that, I started tightening. The cracks in her operation had already begun. I just gave them a little pressure. Suppliers walked. Clients whispered. A subcontractor posted a complaint online about unpaid invoices. The post disappeared an hour later, but I'd already saved it and forwarded it, anonymously, to 2 local design journalists with the subject line, "Langley's reputation problem?" One of them bit, just enough to run a soft piece about growing pains at heritage startups. It didn't name her, but anyone in the region knew exactly who it was about. Investors started asking questions. I made sure of it. One of them pulled out of her reclaimed flooring line 3 days after I sent a file, compiled from her own spec sheets, showing major inconsistencies in material sourcing. No commentary, no threats, just data, clean and quiet. She never traced any of it back to me. But she knew. On some level, she had to. I made a point of showing up where she least expected me. At a weekend market in Saratoga, I strolled past her pop-up booth as she tried to pitch farmhouse minimalism to a couple in their 60s. She froze mid-sentence. Her smile dimmed. For the first time, she didn't recover immediately. Her voice cracked when she tried to finish the pitch, and the couple walked away politely. She stared at my back as I walked off with a carton of eggs and didn't look back. The next time was more intimate. She was sitting in the corner of a hotel bar in Albany, laptop open, mid-call with someone from a luxury spa renovation project. I took a seat 3 stools down. She caught my reflection in the mirror behind the bar, eyes flickering wide for just a second, then dropped her gaze to her drink. Her voice, once confident, began to stammer slightly as she tried to pitch her brand. I listened to her struggle through a description of handcrafted American joinery. The irony almost made me laugh. When she hung up, I raised my glass. She stared at me, lips pressed together so tightly it looked like pain. But still, she didn't speak. Then came the confrontation. Her fiancé, trying to play muscle outside the same expo center the following month. He found me near the rear parking structure, cornered me like he thought he was in a courtroom drama. "You're not welcome here," he said, low and aggressive, stepping just a little too close. "If you're planning to cause problems for Lauren, don't. We have legal support. She's built something real. You're just a bitter ghost." I let the silence hang between us until he started to look uncomfortable. Then I leaned in, calm as anything, and said, "She built a stage. But she forgot the foundation. I'm just here to watch it collapse." He flinched, maybe expecting me to shove him, argue, threaten something dumb and dramatic. Instead, I patted him once on the shoulder, turned, and left him standing there in the cold, his mouth half open and nothing to say. By now, Lauren was paranoid. I could see it in the way she edited herself online, deleting posts faster, controlling the narrative tighter. She'd stopped doing live Q&As. She posted fewer behind-the-scenes clips. Her team photos shrunk from 10 to 5. Her company's About page was under redesign for nearly a month. And then the quiet cancellations began. One design talk postponed, a workshop quietly scrubbed from the calendar, a client site tour rescheduled indefinitely. No press releases explained why. But I knew, because I was making the calls. Not directly, but I made sure the right doubts landed in the right inboxes. I nudged the people I'd once worked beside, tipped them off, reminded them, anonymously, who really built what. Legacy doesn't disappear. It just waits in silence for someone to knock on its door. It all built to the gala, a black-tie heritage preservation event in Manhattan. Lauren was the guest of honor. The room was filled with architects, design journalists, donors, influencers, and every smug little brand consultant who'd ever reposted her, from mill to modern tagline. I wore a suit I'd kept pressed for 5 years. Walked in without a name on the list. No one questioned me. Confidence opens most doors. I slipped through the crowd like I'd never left, champagne in hand, face unreadable. She didn't see me until she was already on stage. She had just accepted her award, an engraved steel compass meant to symbolize enduring craftsmanship. She was mid-sentence, thanking her mentor and father, Thomas Langley, and gesturing toward the room like she owned it. Then her eyes landed on me. She froze. The pause was sharp, unmistakable. Her hand, still holding the compass, trembled just enough to betray her. Someone near the front tilted their head, confused. She blinked again, then laughed, a brittle, unconvincing sound, and tried to salvage her sentence. But the crowd had noticed. The perfect mask slipped. Her voice tightened. She stumbled through her closing lines, accepted applause that came with a whiff of awkwardness, then stepped off stage with her composure cracked and bleeding. I didn't move. She passed within 10 feet of me as she made her way off the floor. She didn't stop, didn't speak, didn't look again. But she felt it, like cold air sneaking under a closed door. She knew. The illusion was breaking. And what terrified her more than anything wasn't that I had returned. It was that I had never truly left. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. But ghosts don't keep notes. Ghosts don't compile timelines. Ghosts don't collect names, print invoices, save receipts. Ghosts don't burn empires. I do. You'd think empires collapse in fire. That they fall with noise, with sirens, with headlines. But the truth is, real collapse feels like silence. Like being alone in a room full of people who've stopped listening. It doesn't scream, it recedes. That's what happened to Lauren. And I made sure of it. The gala was the last time I saw her in person. By the time she stepped off that stage, everything was already in motion. She just didn't know it yet. I sent the flash drive the next morning. Not from my address, of course. I drove 2 towns over, used a postal annex under a fake name, mailed it with no return label. Inside were clean copies of early blueprints, procurement receipts, and bid specs she'd submitted under her name. Except every file was tagged, dated, and signed by me. My initials, buried in the metadata. A full portfolio of proof that the origin of Langley heritage wasn't hers. It was mine. And the person I sent it to? A quiet, methodical investigative journalist who specialized in design fraud. She didn't publish fluff. She didn't chase scandals. She verified. That article dropped like a scalpel, not a bomb. It didn't accuse. It dissected. It pointed out timeline gaps, inconsistencies in vendor contracts, claimed collaborations that couldn't be verified, disputed authorship of early project frameworks. That phrase stuck. Because it wasn't dramatic, it was surgical. Anyone reading it inside the industry knew exactly what it meant. From there, everything accelerated. Within weeks, contracts were flagged. One hotel quietly pulled out of a 7-figure renovation. Vendors stopped returning her calls. Her Instagram sponsor paused a campaign. The same day that audit notice arrived on her desk, I got a ping on a dummy inbox. Subject: request for comment. Langley discrepancy inquiry. I didn't reply. I never planned to. Every time she tried to patch one hole, 2 more opened. Then came the podcast. Her fiancé, trying to do damage control, sat down with some startup business guru to talk branding, legacy, staying authentic in adversity. And that's when he said it. He leaned in and said, Lauren built this from nothing. Her father was old school. Didn't support it at first. Didn't see her potential. That's when the comment sections turned. People remembered the dedication plaques. The old photos of Lauren and Dad. The speeches where she said he was her guiding light. The contradictions started surfacing on their own. Someone dug up a photo of the original Mills website with a header that read, founded by Ethan Langley, honoring 3 generations of craft. People started asking questions. I didn't answer them. I didn't need to. The timing wasn't accidental. I'd spent months lining up every piece, and once the article ran, all it took was gravity. That's when the video dropped. 7 minutes of Lauren in soft lighting, hands folded, voice trembling in all the right places. I never intended to mislead, she said. I was inspired by my father's work, but I also had to carve my own path. Some of our documentation fell through the cracks. She used phrases like growing pains, team misalignment, evolving values. She never said lie, never said theft, definitely never said Ethan. But toward the end, when her voice started to crack, she said something that stopped me cold. My father used to say, "You don't get legacy by claiming it. You earn it. One cut, one plank, one nail at a time." That was my father's line, and she had mocked him for it at the will meeting. She didn't even remember. That's how hollow it had become for her. Just another borrowed line from a man she never understood, parroted like marketing copy now that everything else was falling apart. The comments were brutal. Wait, weren't you disowned by your dad? Didn't you say he refused to support you? This is like watching a liar read from a sympathy script. The video was reposted, memed, clipped out of context. One creator did a side-by-side montage of her old speeches and the article's timeline. The damage wasn't just professional anymore. It was cultural. And then she called me. I didn't answer, but I listened to the voicemail twice. Her voice was flat, thinner than I'd ever heard it. Not angry, not apologetic, just exposed. "You always wanted this, didn't you?" she said. "All of it. You just waited. You could have said something, Ethan. You could have fought me when it happened. But you disappeared. And then you came back like a ghost. Then, quieter, you got what you wanted. So what now? What now? Now, she lives with the echo. Now, every time she sits in a meeting, she wonders who still believes her. Now, every deal she signs comes with a second glance. A question unspoken. Now, she wakes up to silence where applause used to be. She thought she'd buried me. But you can't bury the person who built the ground you're standing on. By the time her company paused operations for internal restructuring, the industry had moved on. A few blogs called it a cautionary tale. Others just stopped mentioning her altogether. No lawsuits. No exposés. Just silence. No one wanted to touch the brand. Because now it had a stink, inauthenticity. And in that world, it's worse than fraud. It's forgettable. As for me, I went back to work. Not under the Langley name. I let that die with the plaque she ripped down. I built something smaller. Local. Word of mouth only. I didn't even use a website. Clients found me by recommendation. I didn't chase PR, didn't pitch legacy. I just made good things for good people. That was always the point. One day, a former supplier I trusted sent me a text. Just got asked to bid on a rebuild for a boutique design firm. Guess who's behind it? I smiled. I didn't reply. Let her try again. She'll rebuild, maybe. But it won't be the same. Not because I ruined her, but because now, she knows someone was always watching. And because the people she wanted to impress now know the truth. She didn't build a legacy. She forged a narrative. And narratives fall apart faster than wood rot when you strip the finish. She thought the crown was hers. She even believed she earned it. But that's the thing about crowns. They don't make you a ruler. They just make you a target.